Hey everybody, this is Tyler Person 20. I'm here with my friend Ernest to talk about, Christianity and atheism. So, Ernest, how are you doing?
I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good. How about yourself?
I am fantastic. And it's kind of funny, like right now, we just got the first comments like, is this canceled or they're just running late? Yeah, we were just running late because, yesterday, he was kind of busy and I guess, we didn't have the time to get to like the stream last night. So that's why we're doing it today. So if you're watching it like, much later, that's why, it's kind of late.
Yes, sorry about that, everyone. Things don't ever work out sometimes as originally intended.
Right, right. So I guess before we get into the main conversation, can you explain to my audience why did you pick Christianity?
Well, it's not really that I guess I could say I picked it. It kind of picked me. I mean, when I was younger, I searched around a bit. You look at a few different kind of religions and ideologies, and you look at is there a God? If there is a God, what kind of God is he? Is there more than one? Is there like eight? Um, you know, uh, is it Buddha? Is it like the God of the Torah? Is it like the God of Islam? You know, there's so many different kind of belief systems to look at, and I was never really a really um, religious person growing up. I mean, I grew up in a household with like three kind of different kind of belief systems. Like my one side of my family is Roman Catholic, another side of my family is evangelical, and then there was me who was um, like what you Americans would call Episcopalian, but I would call Church of England. So one day when I was younger, I was raised in an evangelical church, and I was kind of given the option. I didn't have to go to that church, but I had to go to one church. Didn't matter what it was, but as long as it was a church. So tried the Catholics. Didn't really vibe with me. Went to a few other ones. Even went to a Latter Day Saints church once. That was an interesting afternoon. But finally I went to the Anglican Church and or Church of England, and I just said, you know what, I like this. This is good. This is great. And on and off I'd go. Wasn't big into it, but after I came back to where I live now, after a couple of years up working in Alberta, I decided, you know, I'm enjoying this. This is there's something I want to get more involved on, and I just started getting more and more into it, and here I am. It just grew on me, I guess.
Yeah, and I guess for my case, like I was saying, like off stream, that for my case, when I was like, a kid, I grew up in like the Catholic faith. Like I believe that most of my family, my direct family, like my mom and my grandmother, were like, participating in the church. And therefore, me and my brother, we used to participate in the church. And we used to go to like the Sunday school classes. And
Mhm.
also during my high school year, what's pretty interesting was I actually, was like an altar server. No, I did not get raped. For the record, I did not get raped. I'm just kidding, guys. But yeah, I was like an altar server, and of course, it was the main reason I was like an altar server was because more or less, I'm not sure about the high schools in Canada, but at least in the United States, the high school requirements is that you have like 36 hours of community service, to help
Yeah.
out the community out. And so for my case, I chose to be an altar server for that sort of time period. And I think around the first time, I started, have questions, be more on the skeptical side of things was like the same sort of time I got my first job. Because like, earlier we just talked about like on my Twitter page about how the various, debates about, the skeptics versus like the Christians and blah blah
Yeah.
blah. Yeah. And so I started like watching like a lot of these videos. I started to, analyze like stuff that I thought, were true. And in preparation for this discussion, I decided to, read like, like I said earlier before this live stream, the chapters of Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John to better understand like what I'm gonna say because none of us are like,
Uh,
expert.
I think you're kind of cutting out there, Tyler.
Oh, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Oh no. No, 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 no. How could this not work right now? Can you hear me now? Hello? Oh no. Okay, I'm back. Can you hear me now?
Okay, now I can hear you. Sorry, my internet was kind of running a bit mucky there. I just had to shut some things off, but yeah, we're good. Sorry about that.
Yeah, yeah. I thought it was like my camera for 1 minute. Like I thought it was like the audio was not picking up. But yeah, I was just saying that more or less because of my experience in the past,
Mhm.
I had some sort of experience and like in preparation, I, tried to prepare for like Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John for this discussion. Now, I think it's actually, very important to also define terms because
Mhm.
it's interesting because when people have these sort of discussion, in the past at least for like the medieval period, people would actually get killed for having these sort of discussions, and so I kind of feel fortunate that we now live in a time period where having discussions like these don't result to somebody being dead or something. It's really crazy to think that historically in the past that happened to like a lot of people.
Oh yes, no, like um, religion has caused um, a lot of positive and a lot of negatives. And I mean, that's it happens, schisms and disagreements and things like that. But I mean, we are really lucky that we live in this kind of global age where we can have these discussions and not have to worry, like you said, not to worry about being killed or hurt or anything like that. Um,
By the way, guys, I
so
want I
yeah,
want to show you guys like my whole entire holy collection of books. So, this is my taller Bible when I was like a little kid. Yeah, so those is like when I was a kid, man. But this is like the copy of the Apocrypha. This is like the King James version of the Apocrypha,
yep.
and then also this is like the copy of like the stories of ancient canon, which goes into like the details, for the belief systems of them. I also have a copy of the Reliance of the Traveler is a copy of the Sharia law to know like the Islamic stuff that they have. Here's my
Oh wow, I
copy
don't
of
even have.
yeah, like this is like the copy of my Quran right here.
Oh wow, that's I got mine is a Penguin Books version.
Right. And then of course this is like two more books. So the second to last book is The Life of Muhammad. It goes into like a lot of details like the history of Muhammad. So I recommend this book. And finally, the King James Bible.
Oh yeah,
Which so yeah, I had like a lot of books to know like about the Abrahamic faith. So anyway, without any sort of more fluffing, let's get into like the discussion right here. So
definitely.
more or less, the whole entire concept of non-belief or how we say like atheism that we say nowadays is like nothing new because
Hmm.
even as far back as the ancient philosophers of Greek had this sort of debates about the existence of God and what it means to be part of the universe. One of the famous quotations that has been done by Epicurus is is God willing to prevent evil but not able? Is he not omnipotent? If he's not able but not willing, then he's malevolent. If he's not able and not willing, hence cometh evil. If he's neither able or not willing, then why call him God? So more or less like people as early like in those sort of time period had these sort of questions that we discuss nowadays. And I believe that even the early Christians at some point, because they did not have the beliefs of the other gods around them, at some point they were also called atheists too, which is kind of funny to me because of they did not have any sort of belief in those gods either.
Hmm.
And so Also, here's like another quotation, like, the Bible also, talk about like, people who do not believe either. Like one of the most famous stories that was, of course, in the Bible during like Jesus' resurrection was, of course, the doubting Thomas. And so I'm gonna read like a chapter directly from like, John 20:24. It says right here, now Thomas, one of the 12, is not with the disciples when Jesus came. So the other disciples told him, "We have seen the Lord." But he said to them, "Unless I see the nail marks in his hands, and put my fingers where the nails were, and put my hand into his side, I will not believe." A week later, his disciples were in the house again, and Thomas was with them. Though the doors were locked, James came and stood among them and said, "Peace up with you." Then he said to Thomas, "Put your fingers here, see my fingers, reach out with your hand and put on my side. Stop doubting and believe." Thomas said to him, "My God and my Lord." Then Jesus told him, "Because you see me, you have believed. Blessed are these who have not seen and yet believe." And so, more or less, there has been, of course, example of like, doubting Thomas, like in the Bible, that kind of show that even though like, there were people who were doubters, like they believe because, Jesus, came to them. And so the very idea, I guess you can say, of like non-belief or atheism, for the sake of this whole entire conversation, has always been like, a long sort of standing thing that a lot of people had, both past and present.
No, definitely. I mean, there is always going to be doubt because humans are we're naturally curious creatures. You know, we want to know the truth behind everything. You know, we're not content with mysteries. You know, we just don't like them. And I can see how, you know, that creates, you know, this drive to kind of either prove that God does exist or does not exist. But the thing is, and this might seem like I don't know, like a bad argument in the matter, is that if God is all powerful and omnipotent and can change the world and time and everything at his whims, you don't think that he would make it kind of hard for you to go and see him? I mean, it's you can't think that you're going to be able to look through like a telescope and like see God out on his lawn. You know, it's not going to happen. Um, and so like it's really hard to prove or disprove God. But I mean, like me, you know, I have to say that I believe he exists. I believe, you know, that there is a life after this, and it's we'll get in more into that after. But I mean, that's just me.
Right. So I think, well, the thing that we tend to agree the most, I believe, so far, like in the other conversation that we have, is that, of course, when it comes down to the Bible, particularly like the Old Testament, like it's full of, stuff that it could be interpreted as like allegory, or it could be interpreted as, of course, historical fact. And so, and so when you read the Bible, it's very important to, consider the sort of context when you read it and not to take it really literal.
Yes, yes, and I mean, and that's why, like, even if you look at, say, for example, the parables that that Christ uses, I mean, he didn't say, "Now, listen, guys, these are all 100% true. They all happen." You know, they're just stories to prove a point, to or make a point. You know, and teach the lesson. And so, like, for example, Adam and Eve and the cherubim that kind of guards the gates of paradise there, you know, or of Eden. You know, if we think about what a cherubim is nowadays, it's a cute little baby looking kind of angel. I mean, and that's supposed to have what, like a giant flaming sword. I mean, I I really don't think that's the case. I mean, but yeah, so like you said, it is a point where these are, you know, they're just allegorical stories.
Right. So of course, I also tend to agree with you that Jesus also exists. Now, this right here is a direct quotation, and of course, it's like, one of the major evidence that people use, for historical Jesus. It comes directly, of course, from the Annals, and of course, I'm gonna read like parts of the quotations right here. So, hold on, I'm gonna get my glasses right here. Okay, consequently, to get rid of the report, Nero fastened the guilt and inflict the most executory on the class hatred for the abomination called Christians by the populace. Christus, from whose name had its origin, suffered the most extreme penalty during the reign of Tiberius at the hands of our persecuted Pontius Pilate, and at the most mysterious superstition. Thus, check for the moment again broke out not only in Judea, the first source of evil, but in Rome, where all things hideous and shameful from every part of the world find their center and become popular. So this is like one of the first things that, of course, people, I guess most scholars would point out, that Jesus actually exists as like, a real person. There's also, the account from, Josephus, which also people point out as evidence for the historical Jesus. And of course, I'm not gonna read the whole entire thing because it's like, it's like really long.
It is. It is. It is. I've seen. I've read that. I've read that one before. It is. It is quite the read.
Yeah, yeah, hold on. Let me try to find the part where they mention Jesus for 1 minute. It's like a lot of stuff that they write down, so oh my goodness. Yeah, I cannot find it right now. Hold on. Yeah, yeah, I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna read it, but more or less, like Josephus is also another example of why, of course, Jesus also existed. And so, for me and you, I think we have no doubts that, of course, we can both agree that Jesus also existed as a person.
Yes. Yes. And I mean, if you really look at the examples, I mean, like they corroborate the time of Jesus with other historical figures, like I said, for example, Pontius Pilate. They found evidence that there are records of Pilate's time in the Holy Land, because it was him and Herod Agrippa, I think it is. As you know, my history is kind of focused on the Pacific region and not really that one. That this is not the one, but yes,
It's kind of interesting too because not just like, the ancient Greeks, had like records, but even like the Korean also has reference to, Jesus too. It's interesting.
yes, they refer to him as
Yeah.
Isa, because I mean, like with Islam, they have like they tie the Torah and the Bible as kind of
Yeah.
like on the stages towards the one perfect text, the Quran. But we all know that the one perfect text is the Book of Mormon. That's a joke, guys. That's a joke. Please don't get angry. By the way, like real quick, have you ever read the Book of Mormon?
Actually, no, I haven't.
You should. You should.
I did, however, interview like an ex-Mormon on my channel at some point on so it was like, really interesting to hear her perspective.
Yeah, it's fun. That one there is like the one I'm sorry, any Mormons that are listening, I can't. I mean, magical, or I mean, I should say not magical, but like Jewish refugees in North America, and you find golden plates of all places in New York. Really, New York, of all the places in the world. So, but yeah, no. Back to the.
No, no, no. It's like to me, it's like obviously so fake. I mean, just by your description, but also I remember hearing at some point that the Mormon also, had like this sort of magic underwear thing,
Yes,
or
the inner temple wear. Yes, I remember that was a I remember when Mitt Romney was running for president. That was a thing. That was there was all I remember is Mitt Romney's magical Mormon underwear. But I tell you this though, the one thing I do admire about Mormons, and is the fact that their faith is amazing. Like it's a sight to behold. Like if you see Mormon missionaries, they are dedicated. Like their rules are strict. They always travel in twos, and they can't be like without one another. It's very curious to see, and and the way that they proselytize, it's fantastic. They are a fast growing branch of Christianity. They're very, very fast growing because they're very active, and that's something that the mainstream churches, like the Episcopalians, the Catholics, we're not really doing that, and it shows. But like that's really a topic for another episode, for another stream.
Right. So I guess I'm gonna start with my doubts with the New Testament. So,
Sure.
okay, so of course I do accept that Jesus exists, that he was born from Mary, and of course Joseph was the father. That he did get the 12 disciples, and of course did a lot of cool stuff that people thought were amazing, and that he was of course nailed on the cross underneath the order by Pontius Pilate. However, the biggest thing, I guess, that kind of makes me, doubt, the authenticity of it all is that, for starters, because it took the whole entire New Testament, from what I understand. Again, I'm not an expert. You're not an expert, so we're both not experts. Just for you
Yeah.
guys to just understand. So,
Yeah.
from what I understand, is that of course the New Testament was written at least 40 years after, of course, the event that happened. And I from what I understand, of course, that more or less people, kept the traditions by, of course, telling it orally. Because I remember, reading, stories about, how the people that they attribute to, Homer, what they would do would, just say the whole entire story again and again through oral tradition before they finally wrote it down. And so I believe, and I heard from the scholars, that it was the same sort of thing for the New Testament, and which for it to to continue to exist, people had to do it orally, because back then people couldn't really read or write. And not just that though, but I believe people like Jesus at some point when he was alive spoke Aramaic, and so of course obviously it's different than the Greek that the New Testament wrote down. So over a course of 40 years, I would say, yeah, about 40 years, that's when he started to write the New Testament down. But the thing is though, I'm kind of curious, how reliable is oral tradition? Because sometimes when say stuff again and again and again, the details might change over a period of time.
Yes. Like it. I believe that bits and pieces were written down. Now, this is just me. Like I said, like you said, I'm not an expert. I'm just a dude with a very nice hat. Um, but the thing is that I believe that it was kind of written down piecemeal, and over time, they corroborated the stories, and the words, and put it together to form, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and the Acts of the Apostles, and things like that. Because I mean, let's be reasonable. Like while these things were going on, there wasn't some guy from day one, as soon as Jesus was born, who was just like, you know what, this feels like a story. I'm gonna follow follow him around, and start kind of recording it. No, it's based on, like you said, it's oral tradition, and we really don't know how this was compiled. We really don't. I mean, that's something we got to really understand. I mean, like it's just there, really, at the end of the day. Like it's just there. And so, and besides, we don't really know anything about Jesus' early life. Really, it's only during his rather brief, visible ministry. When he was in his 30s, in his very early 30s. I think he was ministered for what, 3 or 4 years. before he was crucified. But I mean, yep. Sorry.
Yeah, I think also it's kind of interesting to point out that also that the copies that we have for not just for the Old Testament but also the New Testament appears to be like copies upon copies upon copies. And so copy it like every single time you copy like a manuscript, like probably details of it might change over a period of time. And so from my understanding, like the New Testament manuscripts that we know today for the books are based upon copies upon copies upon copies.
Yes, they are. And but I mean, I think that there is enough there to, even if it's not verbatim what happened, or it's what it was originally intended, it is still describing things within a very accurate reason, because like the big stories, the big moments within the New Testament, those are the big things, especially the miracles, the healing. That's things that you're not really going to forget. That like blind men can see, lepers are healed of their leprosy. Woman who is afflicted by a disease, the blood.
And also, like during the part where I believe a guy got his ear cut off before Jesus went to the crucifixion, and then he just healed
Yes.
his ear. Yeah,
Yeah, that was at the Garden of Gethsemane.
yeah.
Because yeah, that was I believe it was Peter, I think, who drew the sword and cut it. It was cut the ear off of the high priest's servant.
Okay, there's a question probably for us. So it's like this is from Mike Oxlong. What about the books they excluded in the Bible?
Um, we really don't know which books were excluded. I mean, this was changed over time. Like certain things, for the most part, from what I can understand, the Bible is canon. There there might be some left out. Um, it's really hard to say. Like I said, I'm not an expert on this, and I mean, um, we can we can maybe look at the kind of the Gnostic Gospels, and like I'm not going to say they're canon. I'm not going to say they're accurate, but I am say like I mean it could help kind of give a good idea of what's not in there, except the one about Judas. That one's not. Don't read that one.
By the
Don't do.
way, I'm actually on a Catholic page of all pages. So the main reason why I'm on a Catholic page of all pages
Mhm.
is that when I was like, researching like a stuff for like this live stream, this conversation, like I know just like, from what the scholars have said, and also this page is which is like a Catholic page of all places, said that of course like the people that we assign to like, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, apparently the authors we don't even know who they are. Apparently like the earliest like manuscripts from what the scholars have said that apparently like they're anonymous.
Uh, they are, but they also could be, like direct kind of disciples of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and other you know disciples and apostles, as it were. But kind of like the kind of answer like Mike's question, like I honestly I don't know. I kind of mentioned reading the Gnostics, but I mean that's not canon. That's not even close to being canon, to be honest. But I mean that it's too hard for me to determine what was I guess quote unquote left out.
By the way, this is like the picture of like the earliest of the earliest manuscript for Matthew 1:9. This is like yeah, it's like really bad condition though. But it's still amazing that it's like still here.
Wow, that is yeah. I don't know if you can restore that one.
Yeah, there's no absolute way you could just easily just restore it. But yeah, getting back to what my point was, like besides, the oral tradition and writing it like 40 years through like the oral tradition and then copies upon copies upon copies. When I started to reread the section with Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, I noticed like entire like synthesis or like the exact same thing. It's not like a variation, but like completely copying. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna compare like the various verses, at least 3 examples of the verses that I noticed that were like word by word, at least almost word by word. So give me 1 minute.
Sure.
All right, I'm gonna just copy my link using like the Bible, the Bible gateway. All right, so there it is. Okay, I'm gonna share right there. All right, this is from Mark 14:38. So let me go right there. So right here in Mark 14:38, it says right here, watch and pray so that you will not fall into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. And here's like a different verse that comes directly from Matthew. So gonna copy and paste right here. And so in Matthew 26:41, it's the exact same thing right here. It's the exact same thing. I just noticed it right here. So here's like another example I'm gonna show you. This comes from like Matthew 20 right here. So, and I'm gonna read out the passage out loud for people to hear. So it says, Jesus replied, "Foxes have dens and birds have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lie in his head."
Yes.
And then for Luke, let me copy the link for Luke, and I'm gonna paste right here. For Luke, and it's gonna load up right here. It's the wait. Is that the same? No, it's the same one. Oh wait, I got the wrong link. Sorry.
Oh, no problem.
Okay, yeah. I'm gonna copy and paste the passage right there. It's the exact same thing for Luke. Yeah, the exact same thing for Luke. And then my final example, and then of course you can respond to it. So this right here comes directly from Mark, and I'm gonna copy, paste right here. It says, taking the 5 loaves and 2 fish and looking up to heaven, he gives thanks and broke the loaves. Then he gave to his disciples to distribute to the people. He also divided the 2 fish among them. They ate and were all satisfied. And then, of course, this comes directly from Luke right here. And more or less, hold on, let me show it. It's the exact same thing. So that's like the 3 examples, I guess, of many examples I saw that were like literally like, word by word.
Well, the thing about that is that those Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, are, is observations of the same events from, these different perspectives. And some of the things, because they were all there, it's usually very, what's the word I'm looking for? It's all similar, but there is differences between the chapter, between the books, in different kind of aspects. Like let me see here. Matthew describes John the Baptist different than Mark. And even Luke does. I mean, like they're all generally kind of different. Matthew is a bit more kind of accurate when it talks about John the Baptist. He what was it here?
By the way, you can share the screen if you want to.
Yeah, I'm on my phone now. If I try to share anything, the Wi-Fi is going to get kind of wonky because
okay.
Yeah, remember I think the weather's been kind of weird here, so I don't want to like mess with it. But I mean, like I'll say, like, let me see, Matthew 3:1, or not even that one. No, chapter 3:4. Now, John wore a garment of camel's hair and a leather belt around his waist, and his food was locusts and wild honey. He must have been reading BuzzFeed. But like it is somewhat different. Actually, no. Actually, I'm
Yeah,
just
like
wrong here.
I'm not denying like there is some differences, but like when I got like to the parts where like verses like those, I'm like, wait a second, this is almost exactly like word by word.
Oh, definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
But yeah. By the way, John the Baptist, Luke kind of gives it a bit more of a description, but it doesn't really talk about what he was wearing. I'm just going through it again just to double check there, because Matthew and Mark, they do kind of discuss him as wearing camel hair and such. But yeah, like I mean, it's all kind of it's all kind of from the same perspective, but there are differences. There are differences in some of the stories. There's some a different kind of interpretation of the events. Some of them are more descriptive. Like I believe is it Luke or John when it was talking about when Pilate, like it's a bit more of the description about Jesus and Pilate, because they have that conversation when he's brought before Pontius, and you know they there's one here, if I'm not mistaken. It goes, let me see, John 18 verse, where was it here? Like I know the general areas of the verses, so don't mind me, folks. It's just the specifics sometimes escape me. Um,
That's why I have like the bookmarks in my books.
I know, I'm sorry. I told Tyler off air. It's been a bit of a hectic couple of days, so
Yeah.
it's kind of understanding why I'm glad you're understanding why I'm a little bit not as prepared as I would have
Yeah, no,
wanted
no,
to be.
no. It's perfectly fine. It's perfectly fine.
But I mean, like Pontius Pilate says to me, like in 18 John 18:30, like into 30s, 33. My kingdom is not of this world, and that, and then he says this thing that's, if I'm not mistaken, is not repeated through the other, Matthew, Mark, or Luke. He says, where was it here? Then Pilate said to him, "So you are a king." This is John 18:37. So then Pilate said to him, "So you are a king?" And Jesus answered, "You say that I'm a king. For this purpose I was born, and for this purpose I have come into this world, to bear witness to the truth. Everyone who is of the truth listens to my voice." And Pilate said to him, "What is truth?" And that isn't repeated anywhere else in that. Um, and it is interesting, to get these four different perspectives. There's one guy who did a topic on this a while back. His name is Enoch Powell, and most people know Enoch Powell for you've heard of Enoch Powell, of course,
Yes.
the Rivers of the Blood speech and things like that. But one thing people don't actually know is that Enoch Powell, while an atheist most of his life, became a fervent Anglican near his death, and actually did a lot of research into the biblical topics. And one of the things he talked about was the differences in the books of the Bible. And I'm trying to get the book. It's called the Gospel. Yeah, something about the Gospels by Enoch Powell. I have to find it again now. It escapes me, but it's been. I almost had it once, but I got lost in Chicago and I never got it. So I'm just gonna have to save up the $80 to buy it again, because it's not a cheap book. But
God damn, $80. It must be a
yeah,
thick book.
no, it's not. It's not. It's not that big. It's like 350 pages. But yeah, but it's rare. I like rare things.
Oh, no wonder it costs $80.
Nobody buys it. Nobody wants to buy it. But I mean, no. But like there are differences. Um, even like see the lilies of the field. Neither do they spin or do they toil. It matters not. Like there's different interpretation. There's different kind of descriptions on the different books of the Bible. That's the best way I can say it.
Now, as far as like the appearances and the resurrections, like I noticed like a lot of glaring contradictions that also makes me kind of doubt the resurrection. And so right here is like a chart of the various, verses from like Mark, Matthew, Luke's, Acts, John, Mark, and Mark again. And so I'm gonna, tell me if it makes any sort of sense, I guess, in my point of view, because to me it's just like, seems very contradictory. So I'm gonna read them out loud. So, of course, in this one right here, it says that Mary, the mother of James, and of course, like Mary Magdalene, and Sholem goes to the tomb where the stone has rolled away. This one, of course, has Mary Magdalene and the other Mary go to the tomb, but it doesn't have Shalom right here. This one right here for Luke has, of course, like the women who have come with him from Galilee, and the stone rolled away, and the tomb is empty. For John, it says that Mary Magdalene goes to the tomb and finds the stone removed. So at least two of these accounts for Mark and Matthew, they have Mary and Mary Magdalene, but for John, they have Mary. And of course, I'm not sure where's the context for like Luke right here. So, but at least for like three of them has like entirely like it's Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and of course just Mary Magdalene and John.
Now, we really can't say that as like the guy gotcha moment. Each of these are different, but generally there is a consistency. At least one of the people is mentioned in three of the four kind of mentions there. So, but then even with the women who had come with him from Galilee, that's obviously Mary Magdalene. That's obvious. It's there's not too many other women mentioned in the New Testament. So we can reasonably put two and two together on that, and kind of assume it's Mary, the mother of James, and Mary Magdalene, and put that. So I mean that honestly, Tyler, that's not the kind of like a reason to doubt.
But there's like a lot more. By the way, there's like a lot more. It's not just this. By the way,
of course.
All right, so right here. Okay, I'm gonna put on my glasses right here. It says they see sitting inside the tomb when they enter a young man dressed in white robe who says that he has been raised. He is not here. Okay, that's like, what was it for Mark right here? This is for Matthew. An angel appears to roll back the stone and sits on it outside the tomb, telling them that he is not here, for he has risen, as he said. Two men in dazzling clothes suddenly appear in white, and they are in the tomb, say that he is not here, but he has risen. Appearance of two angels to Mary Magdalene. So, okay, so right here is like an angel appears for, hold on. Yeah, that's for Mary Magdalene and the other Mary. But right here is like two angels right here for Mary Magdalene. And yeah, it's like for Mary Magdalene and Mary right here. And then, of course, is like they saw like a young man dressed in white robe. So I know it's like a little bit, I guess, small differences right here.
Yes, there is, but I mean, it's still the message is still consistent. The stone has been rolled away, and he is not here. That's the thing. And I mean, like, if we want to really look at, like you said earlier, I mean, everyone knows that this is generally, it was written years after the events happened. So of course, it's going to be a little bit different on each kind of interpretation. And even when we translate the Bible, that's the other thing you got to understand too. It's not just because of the oral tradition; it's the translation process too. Things, listen, we're both speakers of another language. Sometimes things do not get translated as accurately as they should. So that's something we've kind of got to look at as well.
Right, because I believe in the early translations for the Bible, they use like the Latin Vulgate as a direct reference. But of course, for the later, newer modern day translations, what they do is use like the oldest Greek or Hebrew text possible to get like the best sort of modern day translation.
Yes, definitely. But I mean, but like I said, I mean, it is like even when someone was translating things from Aramaic into Greek, things might have gotten, like you said, somebody might have taken a liberty. He might not have. It might have been a lazy scribe. He might have just did. Oh, I got to write down Mary Magdalene and Mary. No, it's just going to be these women who went from Galilee. No, the heck with it. They'll figure it out. Everyone will understand. So that's the thing. Like. Listen, I can understand why it is hard to believe that the resurrection happened. I mean, it's kind of trippy. Yeah, he's dead. He's been put on the cross. He's been nailed to it. He dies, and then suddenly, like, things go crazy. There's an earthquake. There's a shroud in the temple that's rent in two. God is upset visibly. He's upset. And it all kind of it's surprising. It's not something that we, like I said before, God cannot be explained with science. God is beyond science. He transcends it. And I mean, because he's God, he invented it. Or he shouldn't say invent, he created it.
Right. Now, this is like a direct quotations I'm going to use for John. And by the way, you mentioned to me the other day to read about John, so I have like at least 3 pages from Galatians to show people about John because
Oh, Paul, you mean Paul? Paul.
I mean, sorry, Paul. Sorry,
Yeah.
Paul. I don't know why I said John for a second there.
Yeah, the Chad of later Christianity, of later early Christianity.
So yeah, this is directly from Paul, guys. I'm sorry if this said John. I don't know why I said John. I guess it's the first thing I thought. But now it says in Galatians 1:13 right here. From, of course, Paul. For you have heard about my previous ways in Jerusalem, how intensely I persecuted the church of God and tried to destroy it. I was advancing in Judaism beyond many of my own age among my people and extremely zealous of the traditions of my father. It's like, this is like edgelord shit right here.
Oh, no. Paul was an edgy boy.
Yeah.
Like I said, he goes around causing like trouble, especially in the Acts of the Apostles. I mean, Paul is a troublemaker, man. He's just like, it's like, are you Zeus and Hermes? He's like, no, leave me alone with that nonsense. Like, go away, you strange heretics. Hear about Jesus. But like the funny thing is, like, Paul, it I love reading about Paul because I think he is amazing. He's an interesting person, and the change that comes, or I should say, the change he goes through is amazing. It's so fantastical in and of itself.
Yeah, this is another one directly from Paul. This from like Acts 7:57.
Yes, this is the one I was talking about.
Yeah. So, as this, they covered their ears and yelling at the top of their voices, they all rushed to him, dragged out of the city, and began to stone him. Meanwhile, the witness laid their clothes at the feet of a young man named Saul. That's the name before he went to Paul.
Yes, Paul.
While they were stoning him, Stephen prayed, Lord Jesus, receive my spirit. Then he fell on his knees and cried out, Lord, do not hold this sin against him.
Yeah, that one there is just before Paul converts, because that is actually the death of the first Christian martyr, Stephen, because he gives this big long kind of speech where he rails against the people in present before him.
Yes.
And but like, actually, if you want to see this kind of edgelord kind of things, it's Acts 14, and actually it's mostly Acts 14. It's just Paul getting into trouble, him and Barnabas, and they just get into trouble. Let me see here. Like Paul and Barnabas at Iconium. Now at Iconium they entered together into the Jewish synagogue and spoke in such a way that a great number of both Jews and Greeks believed. But the unbelieving Jews stirred up the Gentiles and poisoned their minds against the brothers. So they remained for a long time speaking boldly for the Lord, who bore witness to the world of his grace, granting signs and wonders to be done by their hands. But the people of the city were divided. Some sided with the Jews and some with the apostles. When an attempt was made by both Gentiles and Jews with their rulers to mistreat them and to stone them, they learned of it and fled to Lystria and Derbe, cities of Laconia, and to the surrounding countryside. And there they continued to preach the gospel. And then he once again does it again in literally the following part of that, when he goes to Lystra, because they thought that it was Paul, Zeus, and Hermes, and they brought the oxen and the garlands to the gates and wanted to offer sacrifice with the crowds. But when the apostles heard about it, they tear off the garments and they go at the crowd and they're like, guys, why are you doing this? We're just people like you. We have the same nature as you. We bring the good news of God. And he pretty much just gets them angry. And then even with the words, even though the people were like, okay, so they just said they're not gods, they still want to do the sacrifices. It's really interesting. like Paul just goes around and causes trouble. He is fun. Like Paul is my favorite apostle. He is fantastic. And
By the way, guys,
yep.
I'm gonna share when he started to see like the visions of Jesus.
Yes, when he was going to Damascus.
Yeah. So this comes from First Corinthians. So, from what I received, I pass on to you as of first importance, that Christ died for our sins according to the Scriptures, that he was buried, that he raised on the third day according to the Scriptures, and that he appeared to Epicurus and then to the 12. After that, he appears to more than 500 of the brothers and sisters at the time, most of whom are still living, though some have fallen asleep. Then he appeared to James, till to all the apostles, and last of all, he appeared to me also. So more or less, from what I'm getting, basically, Jesus appeared to other people, then he appeared to James, then finally Paul.
He does, and actually,
Yeah.
The chapter where Paul is converted from Saul to Paul is Acts 9. Do you want me to just kind of read that one out? Because then you can, if you want to talk about him appearing to Jesus, or Jesus appearing to him,
sure, you can talk about it, sure.
And this is the one where he really gets what you would consider to be a vision. But Saul, still breathing threats and murder against the disciples of the Lord, went to the high priest and asked him for the letters to the synagogues at Damascus, so that if he found any belonging to the way, men or women, he might bring them bound to Jerusalem. Now as he went on his way, he approached Damascus, and suddenly a light from heaven shone around him. And falling to the ground, he heard a voice saying to him, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? And he said, who are you, Lord? And he said, I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting. But rise and enter the city, and you will be told what you are to do. And the men who were traveling with him stood speechless, hearing the voice, but seeing no one. Saul rose to the ground, and although his eyes were opened, he saw nothing. So they led him by the hand and brought him to Damascus, and for 3 days he was without sight, and neither ate nor drank. So that there is when Paul encounters Jesus. Now people might say, it's not a real kind of encounter. He fell off his horse, things like that. But can you imagine this, though, Tyler? Just kind of think about this. An encounter like that, so powerful, it changes a zealous Pharisee, someone who was just moments before preparing to,
like you were saying, destroying the churches and stoning people.
Yeah, just kind of clear it up. Paul did not stone Stephen. Paul was there, but he didn't actually he wasn't the one who pulled the trigger, as it were.
Yeah.
But no, like can you just imagine, that kind of experience, something like that happens, and this overzealous man, this soldier of the Pharisees, just something snaps and changes right off the bat. Like, that's Paul was an educated man too. Like, he was and he was a Roman citizen. That actually helped him in his efforts of conversion, because you couldn't just summarily execute a Roman citizen. There had to be like a procedure. So Paul used that a lot to get out of trouble. It was quite ingenious. Um,
I
but yeah,
mean, I guess this is where the skeptic part of me come in play.
sure.
So, more or less, like, when people, start to say, like, I seen Jesus or whatever, people like, Paul and these other apostles, like, can it be like a possibility that this could just be explained by hallucination?
Now, of course, you can explain almost anything from a medical standpoint.
Yes.
But really, though, you've got to. And here's the other thing about this,
Yeah.
is that, and this is why I think that Paul is did encounter Christ, because when Paul was going around doing his mission, um, oh,
I'm the skeptic here. I'm the skeptic.
yeah, I'm the Anglican, I guess. So
Yeah,
so
I'm the doubting Thomas in this conversation,
no,
guys.
you're the doubting Tyler. You're the doubting Tyler. Um, but no, like the thing is that Paul. There's another part when Paul ends up in Malta. God knows why. Anyone would end up in Malta. The weather, although the weather's pretty nice there, I guess. But no, he ends up there, and he's sitting by a fire, and a viper comes up and bites onto him, like latches right onto the hand. And it's in the Acts of the Apostles, and everyone's like, oh well, good luck there, champ. You're done for. Um, Paul's just like, no, I'm not. Chad moved, rips the viper off, throws it into a fire, and he's just like, okay, I'm hungry, let's eat. Everyone's like, but you're gonna die. That was a poisonous viper. Yeah, it's just a scratch. I'm good. Pass the potatoes. Like Paul is protected at certain times. And I'll give you the reason why I say that. And it's still in that same part when Saul is about to become Paul. Um, he has to go to a guy named Ananias when he arrives in Damascus, and it's chapter 9, verse 10. Now there was a disciple in Damascus named Ananias, and the Lord said to him in a vision, Ananias, and he said, Here I am, Lord. And the Lord said to him, Rise and go to the street called Straight, and look at the house of Judah. And at the house of Judah look for a man of Tarsus named Saul, for behold, he is praying. And he has seen in a vision a man named Ananias might come, lay hands on him so he might regain his sight. Um, but Ananias answered, Lord, I have heard from many about this man, and how much evil he has done to your saints in Jerusalem. And here he has the authority from the chief priest to bind all who call your name. But the Lord said to him, Go, for he is a chosen instrument of mine, to carry my name before the Gentiles and the kings and the children of Israel. For I will show him how much he must suffer for the sake of my name. So that is that. Paul is a divine instrument. He is guided by the Lord, and he is protected. Like I said, if you look through the Acts, Paul gets into all this kind of mischief. Rocks are flung at him, people try to kill him, and he still makes it out.
I think it's the same case for like most people nowadays. Like sometimes, I guess for some people who do go into religion, like they used to be like this sort of, edgy kind of person just trying to destroy everything before they, convert.
Uh,
It's so I guess that kind of story could be relatable for like a lot of people.
mm.
All right. So earlier you mentioned about the earthquake, and I'm gonna try to, one by one, gonna, put my own personal theories of what could have happened that's more plausible for me, and then you could
Sure.
probably, react to what I say. So this comes directly from Matthew 28 right here. When, of course, like one of the many accounts that when Jesus, rose from the dead. So after the Sabbath on the dawn of the first of the week, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to the tomb. There was like a violent earthquake, for an angel of the Lord came down from heaven, and going to the tomb, rolled back to the stone and sat on it. Okay, here's my first theory of what could have happened. We both agree that Jesus do in fact exist as a historical figure. So when they mentioned about like an earthquake, I mean, could it not be like outside, like within the realm of possibility that, of course, when like they went to the grave, the main reason why his body was not there was because of the earthquake.
Well, there was two earthquakes.
Yeah.
Actually, like there was the earthquake when Jesus finally, I guess, gave up
Yeah.
the ghost. But this one here, like now we could say that, but like I said, we don't know the specifics here. Did the earthquake? Oh yeah, somebody says there. I'm sorry if they misunderstand me because of my accent.
Yeah,
I'm
it's like his accent's from Canada, so that's why it's different than mine.
Yes, I am. I will endeavor to speak a little bit slower. I'm sorry. But no, like when this happened, there's no description that there was an earthquake, but where was the earthquake? Where did it open the? Where did there something opened, or was it like I've been through earthquakes, and the earth was not rent asunder, I guess, as it were. So it's hard to say. Now the guards were stunned. How were they stunned? Like it's very it like the Bible does not describe the small things. And that. I mean, for skeptics, it kind of gives them that kind of way in, I guess. But I can understand the like what you're getting at, Tyler.
And then this is like another one that I guess I'll share my point of view, and then of course you can respond to it again. So this comes directly from like John 20, of course, like after this is like during the resurrection. So it says in John 20, chapter 2, so she came running to Simon Peter and the other disciple, the one Jesus loved, and said, "They have taken the Lord out of the tomb, and we don't know where they put him." So again, I mean, I'm not, a historian, so I cannot, say if this this is 100% true. This is all just a theory. All just a theory, not anything confirmed whatsoever. But is it entirely possible during the whole entire day of the resurrection there could be like people just stealing the bodies for Jesus?
It hypothetically, it is possible, but like I said, like the Bible says, there are guards posted at the tomb.
Yeah.
And these aren't just like Bob and Jim down the street. These are
Yeah.
Roman guards, and they're trained soldiers. So grave robbing was a thing back then, definitely. Like I mean, it always was. I mean, you look at through history, but the Romans and the Pharisees, the Jewish authorities in Jerusalem, they had it. They had to make sure that Jesus's body stayed where it was too, because if it disappeared, then the disciples could say, "Hey guys, look, he's gone. He's resurrected. He's coming back, like he said." And so that's why they posted these guards there. So hypothetically, yes, it is possible, but it's very unlikely. And when it says, they have taken our Lord, that's not saying that somebody has, thrown the corpse over the shoulder and off they've gone. It's not that. It's they had heard that Jesus' body had gone missing, and all the disciples rushed down to go and kind of find out, like, what's going on. It said somebody who took our Lord. But he was not, like as it says in the Bible later on. He comes back. Briefly.
I have like two more theories, and
Sure,
again
sure,
you can
sure.
respond to the other two theories. So the first theory is that I heard, of course, from the historians, from the videos, like the various scholars and the videos I saw on YouTube from them, that of course Jesus had like a brother. His name was James, I'm not mistaken, and I mean, could it be possible that either James or some sort of look-alike be at the tomb, and then people mistake him as Jesus?
No, no,
Yeah,
I don't know because now,
yeah,
like I said earlier,
yeah,
anything is possible, Tyler.
yeah,
Like anything, but at the same time, um, there is a difference in age between Jesus and his brother.
yeah,
Um, they have different parents, really. I mean, if you really think about it, because I mean, um, Jesus is the Son of God, and James is not. So there aren't. We don't really know how they look. That's really the best way I can decide that. Like, I mean,
yeah.
um,
And this is the one last theory that I have, and again, all hypothetical right here, all hypotheticals that I'm coming up with. Now, I heard like people such as the Bible scholar, his name is like Bert Ehrman. He made like, what was it like the books called Jesus Interrupted or something. And his argument that I heard from him, again, he's like a acclaimed Bible scholar, is that apparently he did not put like the body in the tomb at all, because his argument that he did in his video lectures was that it was entirely possible that they put the body in a mass grave. And I'm done with the whole entire story, by the way. Oh no, I think we lost Ernest right here. Yeah, we lost Ernest right here. Oh no. Yeah, like the Wi-Fi for Ernest is like, really bad. Okay, 1 second. But yeah, I'm going to wait for 1 second for Ernest to be back, and then he will come back, guys. So no worries right here. But let me go into like the comments right here, and respond to the various comments. So sorry if I misunderstood him. He speaks really fast with a marked accent. Yeah, like the thing about, of course, Canada is like they have a distinct accent in comparison to ours. He's particularly from like Newfoundland, and so yeah, like what they speak in Newfoundland is different than my own personal accent. So that's why it's kind of like a difference between like the accents right here. But yeah, like I was saying earlier, like the main reason why I was like a skeptic is because more or less I started to question like the stuff when I was like a teenager, and like a lot of the stuff like didn't make much sense to me. And so, oh, there's Ernest again.
yes. Okay, I switched over to a different system here, so hopefully that'll work. Um,
Oh, so
so
did you hear anything what I said?
you just have to refresh me there. I kind of it was kind of going in and out. I'm really sorry.
Okay, so the first, like the final theory that I'm going to say right now, it seems to be argued by like a biblical scholar. His name is like Bert Ehrman. He is known for like the books like Jesus Interrupted, and he's making this sort of argument that apparently that they did not put like the body of Jesus in the tomb, that apparently like they put the body in a grave. What do you think about it?
Um, I don't think so
Yeah.
because you see, this when Jesus was crucified, this was a big deal. I mean, Jesus had a vast following.
Yeah.
That's why, like I said, and I got to point out one thing: the Romans were not the ones who wanted him dead. It was the Pharisees, because he was a threat to them, not to the Romans. Like, people think that Jesus was some kind of like rebel.
Yeah, yeah, because
Um,
if you look into like the New Testament, it mentioned, of course, like in the various accounts, that Pontius Pilate was actually really hesitant to even do it.
incredibly, it
Yeah,
was the high priest and the Pharisees who were just like, listen, you have to get rid of him. I can give you this other guy. I can we who do you want me to release? Jesus, this guy, carpenter fellow, or Barabbas, this horrible jerk. And he's and they're just like, Barabbas, bring us this guy. He's fun. But no, like but like he, what I'm trying to say here was that Jesus was so kind of known and regarded that it would have been politically dangerous for the Romans to just dump him in a mass grave and bury him up. And really, how many mass graves are around in Israel at that time? I mean, like when they were doing when I think it was the Zealots rebelled just after the time of Jesus. That's when there was people being killed in mass and that. Like at the time, the Romans were not really doing that. So I'm not like a mass grave is possible, but very implausible in my opinion. And besides, like I said, the Romans didn't see him as a huge um, threat to them. He was a problem to the Pharisees. The hell with those guys. And Jesus was already offered a tomb. The Romans had said, listen, when he's dead, take his body, shove it in that tomb over there. And just to kind of keep the Pharisees happy, we'll post some guards there and make sure, that'll keep them happy. So I don't, yeah.
By the way, not to put you on a spot right here, but because I'm not his expert at all, but like outside of the Bible, do we know any sort of more sources to talk about the resurrection? Not the resurrection, but like the crucifixion and the tomb stuff outside of the Bible.
Not to my knowledge. Now,
Yeah.
not that's not to say that it's not there. Like we've stated, we're not experts
Yeah.
on the matter. We're just two friends who have an interest in religion. Um, and so maybe in a couple more years, as you know, I can probably tell you these things in better
Yeah, like
detail.
I don't. Yeah,
But
because I've been. Yeah, because for the preparation for this live stream, I was like looking and looking. Like I couldn't find any sort of records of like the crucifixion or the tomb stuff outside of the Bible.
well, no, and we also have to remember that the records back then were it is hit and miss. I mean, it really is.
Yeah.
Not everything gets passed into modern thing. So that's not to say that there isn't something possibly out there or may have been. But yes, you're right. There isn't. But a funny thing is, a lot of the things that happened to Jesus um, are actually tied into biblical prophecy. Um, and it's really that's a really interesting thing in and of itself, because literally it actually brings up a really interesting discussion for even for skeptics is the amount of free will Jesus has. Because I mean, really, we look at Jesus as the Son of God who is doing his Father's will, and kind of playing along to this script, I guess, as it were, if we want to kind of use a layman's term. Um, but at the end, when Jesus is in the garden and he knows that he's going to be betrayed and killed, he says,
Yeah,
I
he seemed to like earlier in the Gospels, he was just saying before he actually died that he was gonna die, and suddenly he kept saying that and saying that, and it actually happened.
well, I mean, it was
Yeah,
that, and I'm trying to
yeah,
find it here.
it is.
Um, let's see.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to find it. I'm really sorry. I usually have all of these things.
Yeah,
Um,
that's kind of why put like the links in ahead of time.
I know, and I'm sorry about that. Like I said, it's been one of those days, man.
Yeah.
Like everything's literally not working. Um, but let me see. Um, okay, here it is. Luke 22, 41. Um, And he withdrew from them about a stone's throw and knelt down and prayed, saying, Father, if you are willing, remove this cup from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done. And there appeared an angel from heaven, strengthening him. And being in agony, he prayed more earnestly, and his sweat became like great drops of blood falling to the ground, etc., etc. So really, this is actually the one where Jesus is just like, "Hey, I'm gonna die. I'm really gonna die. This isn't fun. This sucks. Like, can you not do this to me? Like, is there any way out of this? And the angel, I guess, comes down. We don't know what the angel really says, but the angel comes down and he's just like, okay, all right, I guess I got to do it, because we all want to be good sons to our parents, even if it results in death, I guess.
Right. Now, as far as the whole entire, character of Jesus as portrayed in the Bible, I think, I guess to a certain extent we can both agree that in comparison to someone like, Muhammad, Jesus is way better. There's like no doubt for me at least. But there is like, some verses that Jesus has said that makes me, kind of, questions like, him because like some of it is like, I think I find to be really interesting. So he says right here from Matthew 10:31 that anyone who loves their father or their mother more than me is not worthy of me. Anyone who loves their son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. So right here he's saying that it's required for like believers to love Jesus more than even their family. And when I see that kind of passage, at least the way that I'm interpreting it, it's like, of course, yeah, obviously I do accept that Jesus is like, a historical figure. But as a historical figures, like I don't really, have that sort of emotional connection per se. For example, let's say I could find like a historical person that I like, and I could read like the history like behind the whole entire person. But at the same time, like I don't have that historical connection with that person because I don't know that person, so I cannot really have that emotional thing. And so when I have somebody, as close to me, like my mom or my dad or my brother or whatever, obviously I feel more connected to them than somebody who's like a leader of religion to say love me more than my own parents.
Now, I gotta kind of point this out, and it's kind of my turn to slightly kind of put you on the spot here. Um,
Yeah.
there is context about that, and it's prior to the verse that you read. Like 30
Yeah, yeah,
10 34.
36, right? Yeah, 36.
Yeah, like, do not think that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I have not come to bring peace but a sword. For I have come to set man against his father, and daughter against her mother, and daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And a person's enemies will be those of his own household. So that's the preceding text of this. And the the thing here is that Jesus isn't saying like, I don't want you to like your parents. I don't want you to like hate your family. He's talking about that when he is there to change the Judaism as as it currently exists, because it has been corrupted. It has become tainted. And I mean, if you look at it, um, it kind of has the Pharisees, and that there's the whole part where Jesus just rambles, or not rambles, but he talks about the Pharisees and criticizes them for being like hypocrites and frauds. And what this was about was not that Jesus said like, you have to love me more than anyone else, and not kind of get away. You're not how do I say this? You It's not that he was saying like hate your parents. That's not what he meant. But what he said is that my message is going to be controversial and it's going to be difficult. But if you want salvation, you have to believe in the message. You have to believe in me. And there are other parts in here where, oh, somebody says, isn't he
Yeah,
demanding?
yeah, more or less, yes, more or less.
Well, yes, because he is bringing the true word.
Yes.
But the thing is that Jesus has never really, like, he's not as forceful as other historical figures or religious figures who wanted allegiance. You know, his sword was not a physical, pointy, sharp one.
Yeah, like I
Like
noticed
other.
that that passage, by the way, with the sword was like usually is misquoted by like a lot of people who skeptical as me. So it's not as attack people. So
Well, no. Like
yeah,
his sword is a spiritual one. He wasn't saying
yeah,
like rise up and fight, because later on he says, give unto Caesar what is
yeah.
due unto Caesar. Um, but the thing is like Jesus does want that. He does want you to give your allegiance and your love to him, because through Christ there is salvation. Um, and so that is why people, like you would say that, there's another one too where it says, Lord, I want to serve you, but let me go first and bury my father who is dead. And
Mhm.
Jesus is just like, you know what? Go home, buddy. I'm not going to deal with you. Let the dead bury their dead.
Now, the
Yep.
second thing that I kind of found questionable about Jesus the person, again, I guess, like I said before, like in comparison to Muhammad, he's way better, but just some things that I just, found questionable. So in Matthew 12, and I guess not just Matthew 12, by the way, it's like a lot of verses across the Gospels, but the whole purpose when Jesus, started was born, and of course started to preach the gospel, it also introduced the various concepts of hell. And right here is like a clear example. So in Matthew 12:32, he says, anyone who speaks a word against the Son of Man will be forgiven, but anyone who speaks against the Holy Spirit will not be forgiven, either in this age or in the age to come. And another one I'm gonna find right here.
Mhm.
It's like hold on, I'm gonna load it up right here. Wait. No, that's not it. That's not the right one. But anyway, my main point, I guess my main point right here
Mhm.
is that there are various verses that Jesus referred to hell as a concept, and he also mentions that non-believers who do not follow him are destined to hell. And I guess, one of my problems with the idea of God is the problem of evil. Because I would think, of course, people who are probably like, me, who have not done a single bad thing in their whole entire life, why they're destined to burn for eternal torture and hellfire.
That is a good question. And that's honestly, Tyler, like that's not a question that like I can easily answer, because I mean like who are we to understand the logic of God? It's one of those big philosophical kind of questions. And like that text that you mentioned,
Yeah.
um let me see here. That was 1037, I think it was, or
Hold on, let me look
11.
at this. Let me look at my notes. It was Matthew,
Yeah,
Matthew 12:32. Yeah.
Matthew 12:32.
Yes.
Um, what he's talking about is more or less, it's a standard religious thing, blasphemy. Um, it's blasphemy against God. And I
Yeah.
mean, generally, we kind of know that in the Bible, God does not like to be mocked. He really
Yeah,
does not
more or
like
less
this.
when you go back into like the Ten Commandments, it literally says like, thou shalt not say my name in vain.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I mean, but what really is blasphemy, for example, that's a hard thing. I can't answer that one.
Yeah, like
Um,
sometimes, but because people say like, his name, like, oh my God, or like, God damn it, like that could be considered like, blasphemy.
it
Yeah.
can, it can, but I mean, like I said earlier, I mean, I know this is kind of like the lazy man's kind of way of explaining it away, but
Yeah, yeah.
we don't know the logic of God. We don't know God's logic behind this. We are we're only like what I personally believe as a Christian, and I know there's some skeptics somewhere going, "Ah, here we go," because he used that line. But I mean, no, like I hear what I believe is that people, if you live a decent enough life, no one is perfect. In the Bible, it shows that no one except Jesus is perfect, and even Jesus has his human moments. But we are all human. We make mistakes. I think as long as you live a decent and honorable life, I think there is a path for salvation, because you think about this. There's this logic that you have to accept Christ to be saved. But what about the people who came before him and the people who lived
Yeah, like,
far
more
off?
or less, like, it was referenced, like, to, John the Baptist too many times, and also mentioned that before Jesus, was dying on the cross, they actually, of course, beheaded John the Baptist.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was kind of a weird thing. That was
Mm,
over women.
yeah.
Which is, hey, that's you want to show off a bit, show the head of a saint. But no, like the thing here, um, will God punish you for eternity if you disrespect Him so much for omnibenevolence? Uh, it's not that. Like I said, I can't speak for God. I'm not going to. I'm not. We're not in that position, so we don't know what. Like, the Bible is complicated. There are things in the Bible besides the Ten Commandments. There are things that cry to the heavens for vengeance. I think it is, and it's yeah. There is something about that. I have to find that later on, but that's just something that kind of just flew into my memory. Um, and they're actually not. They're pretty interesting things to kind of say, but no, like, uh, God is complicated. God is very, very complicated, and we see that from the Old Testament to the New Testament. God, he goes through a lot of changes, man.
Yeah, like,
He
if you
does.
compare, like, like, the stuff he did in the Old Testament is crazy because
Ooh, slavery, and like, he's just like, okay, you guys didn't listen. The plagues and this and that was enough.
and then the Great
Slaves
Flood
in Egypt.
too.
Yeah, and Sodom and Gomorrah, and things like that. Well, actually, funny thing is, God was actually really reasonable in Sodom and Gomorrah in that situation, because He's like, listen, I'm going to blow up this city because of all the whatever's going on over here.
I
People in
remember
bouncy
there was, like,
castles.
some sort of story where, like, he sent some sort of bear and then it just mauled on children or something. I can't remember the exact.
I don't believe I don't remember that one.
Yeah.
Um, uh, no, but no, like, there's this part where, like, and it's really blast. It's kind of like shocking, because it shows like how patient God can be, because Sodom and Gomorrah, like, Lot comes out, and God's like, hey, listen, I'm going to destroy your city. Okay, hey, hey,
And
hey,
then
hey,
also
wait a
the
minute,
one
no, no,
that
no.
and then there was also, like, the whole entire part where, Abraham was, of course, called by God to, go towards his son, but then he stopped him with the knife, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a test. He was testing the faith of
Yeah.
Abraham.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I don't know what
Yeah,
to say about that.
I'm gonna put you on the spot here, so, do you think
Sure.
something is good just because God says it's good?
That is a very dude, that is a philosophical question, like, worthy of, like, I don't know, Kant and Hegel. Like like this is a Voltaire even. I don't even know, like,
Yeah,
what
because,
determines.
I mean, I would think if he was like, if God, said, like, murder is good, it doesn't mean that murder is good. And so I would think
Yeah,
just by my
well,
own, experience, by, not wanting to hurt people, that murder is wrong, and that if God said that murder is right, then I would say, no, you're wrong.
I don't.
Yeah.
Oh man, this is that, like, I now I want to say, like, if God says something is good, then yes, it is good. I mean, I want to say that, but then, it's hard to say. Jupiter would never. Okay, now, okay, I got to kind of respond to this one here. TBA said, ruining a man's life, Job, over a bet with Satan is fine. Then no, no, no. Jupiter, or not Jupiter. Oh, goodness, I was reading the other one thing. Um, Job, if you notice though, he ruined he tested Job's faith. He tested Job. All Job had to do to give up was just, you know, um, curse God, blame him, but he didn't. And his children were killed. Yes, his children were killed. He lost his riches. He was afflicted with these terrible sores. Everything sucked. It burned when he peed. You know, it was just a dreadful kind of day. Um, you know, it was just bad. But at the end of those trials, you know, God said each time, you know, do not physically, you know, put him near death. You know, just hurt him, but don't, you know, physically harm him. And after that, he was rewarded. His wealth was multiplied, and he had several children. The funny thing is about this, and this is really unusual for the times. Only his daughters are mentioned then by name. His three daughters are mentioned by name afterwards, and the only thing it says is that they are incredibly beautiful. So we can look at this and say God has punished him. He
Wait. There's another
he said
one.
he was
It's like
proving
you
he was
prove a
proving a
point to
point.
Satan. Yeah.
He was proving I can't comment. Like I said, I'm not an expert on this. You know,
Yeah.
I'm not a biblical expert. I'm like my faith is not recent per se, but you know, I'm still working on it. You know, it's a work in progress, like anything. But I
Yeah, I
mean, I
think the whole
really
yeah, the thing is like the whole entire purpose, like, for chats like these is, for people to decide for themselves that one way is better than the other way and vice versa. And
yeah.
so the whole entire purpose for like chats like these is to, find ways to censor truth. Because
Yes,
honestly,
yes.
exactly.
And it's to get people kind of interested and get
Yeah.
people thinking. And you know, if you pick up a Bible or not, you know, that's great. You know, if you pick one up and you love the Lord,
Yeah,
awesome,
yeah.
cool.
It's and I kind of find it sad that, even the people who allegedly believe in the Bible, like a lot of them, from what I read from the data, don't really read the Bible. It's like I remember reading at some point in the data that people who tend to be like, more skeptical like me tend to read the Bible more than the Christians. That's kind of weird to me.
It is, but I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not even sure. Like TBA was just saying, like, what about all the collateral damage? Like, if you're referring to like Job's losses, you know, losing his camels and his
Yeah.
sheep and his house and his kids and that and his health, um, all of that was repaid, you know, several times over by the Lord for Job's faith. You know, his faith was multiple. His faith gave him multiplied riches, more than he had before. He had more children than he had before. He lived a lot longer. Job was not like really on death's door.
You
Job
know,
lived like
it's interesting you mentioned about the age because like people in the Bible lived up to like what 900 years old and so
like that can be like nine. Like I had a priest try to explain it to me one time.
yeah.
And he was just like, you know, it's more of a maybe it's 900 moons, like you know, it's like moon
Yeah.
cycles, something like that. Like I don't believe there was like a 900-year-old man
Yeah.
like getting around there. And also,
Yeah.
you know, Satan is a Middle Eastern concept. The funny thing is, there is
Yeah.
a group of I think it's the Yazidis that worship the peacock angel, um, who is actually thought of to be Shaitan, which is you know the Muslim version of Satan, which is quite interesting. Um, the
Let's,
dead pe-
let's see. The dead people do not matter. I guess that's for you. Yeah.
yeah, like how do we know? Like, but here's the thing: if this had gone on and Satan had caused his family to be killed, which is what happened. You know, the house came down while he was with his relatives and killed the family. So would God not have given them rewards in the next life? Like, listen, I know that's not religious, but I like I said, I can't speak for God's logic on this. Okay, I really can't. You know, I'm not like I said earlier, and I got to keep saying it. I'm not an expert. You know, I'm not going to try to pretend that I can explain away everything. You know, I'm not going to do that. Tyler knows me. I'm pretty honest about what I believe. So I mean, like if I can't explain something, I'm going to be honest. I can't explain it. And maybe in the future, if we have another one of these live streams, you know, I will do a bit more research. I'll talk to some of my friends and that who are a lot more knowledgeable in the faith than I am, and give you kind of a follow up on that in the future if you want to tune in. But I
Yeah,
mean,
like I said
honestly,
like I said earlier, like it's very important to have like a lot of different books, like the ones that I have on my table right here.
Yes, yes, you've got that old skeptic kind of going on there, like you're like, well, I got the knowledge, and you roll them out like Yu-Gi-Oh cards. It's like, I've got level 5 knowledge, bam. And I'm blown away. But I've done a pretty decent job for someone who, despite my circumstances of the weekend, has come out pretty. I mean, I can handle myself in these kinds of matters. I mean, like I said, though, TB, I'm not an expert, but I mean, I appreciate you being reasonable, dear, saying fair enough in that. Thank you very much. It's nice that we can
Right.
have. It's nice we can have a reasonable discussion, because a lot of people, they wouldn't.
Yeah, like a lot of the discussions that I see sometimes is like a shit show, really.
Oh my God, yes. Oh, I know, I know, I know. Um, but like, do you think that all souls from Neanderthals to the 21st century are living in heaven or else since the beginning of humanity? I don't know. I don't know. I'm going to assume. I'm going to assume that if they. But like, yeah,
Okay,
no, no,
that's like
no. That is a philosophical question. But honestly, I think yes. I think, or at least the good, quote unquote, good ones. Maybe Ugg was very good at building at living in caves, and God says, you know what, Ugg, you never met Jesus, bang, heaven. Oh, here's your cave in the sky, I guess, as it were.
I
Um,
wonder how much is that like a trill question, but it's like it's still
it
funny.
might be a
Yeah.
troll, but I mean, hey, like honestly, it's that is an interesting question though, and that's actually a big philosophical kind of or even like it's a really really big religious kind of discussion, like how and like how can you really say like who's getting into heaven and who's not? Because I mean, there are the specifics, yes, but
Yeah,
if you had
like I was
never.
saying earlier, like there's like people who are not, part of Christianity who are good people. And so the sort of, try to, find like the sort of balance, like what is just, what is not just is very philosophical.
Like, what about all those people who live on Sentinel Island, off in the Andaman Islands in India? They've never met people. So like, is everyone from the Sentinel Islands going to hell? Probably not. Um, they're probably going to be sent to a store to get pants, but other than that, um, no. So like that's a hard question. I mean, that's something
Yeah,
probably better.
that's kind of why like a lot of people, tend to be like, on the side of skepticism because of the problem of evil. Because like, philosophically, you would think that God is good and God is just. So how is it just and how is it good for
But but
people
but
who are not, bad to go to hell?
Now we look at
Yeah,
this though, like gods
yeah.
are not always they learn to. Gods learn. If we look through all the other history, like Zeus, you look at the Mahabharata. If you read the Mahabharata,
Okay.
the gods learn all the time, and it's quite interesting. So they are like, I think even God learns from humans. Um, like you look at like how he changes from the Old Testament into the New Testament. He goes from like every 5 minutes, I'm going to throw like this problem at you and that problem at you
So
to.
you're saying that more or less your justification is that because he changed from the Old to the New Testament, that it's possible that outside the Bible he may have changed his mind for that kind of stance.
Well, I believe that having a human son, giving humanity that chance, I think that maybe he saw it in a sense, because we do
Yeah.
see him less involved afterwards. I mean, from the Old Testament, he was very hands-on. He's like guiding the
I
Israelites
believe
around.
like in Genesis he even came into like human form at some point.
Yeah, he walks in the garden.
Yeah.
He walks in the garden and he's hanging out and he sees everyone naked. He's like, "Why are you guys hiding?" He's like, "Because we are naked." Who told you you're naked? How do you know about nakedness and all this? Like he's like, who? How did you discover yourselves? What have you been eating or consuming, I should say? You know, not this herb of truth, but that was kind of really bad
Here's a
joke,
question
but
for
no,
here's a
yeah.
question for you. So, how is a timeless, omniscient being able to change?
Well, mm, I can say that, we were created in his image. So if we're created in his image and we are given free will, that assumes, of course, that God has free will. So I would say that God learns just as much as we do. We learn from God, God learns from us. And we see that, but we do see him kind of mellow a bit over time. Like the original, like we see him, he's very hands-on with the tribes of Israel. He's very, very hands-on. But as time goes, he's less and less physically intervening. He mostly just sends out prophets after a while. He sends out, Jeremiah and all these
It's
other
also
people.
interesting you mentioned about the prophets because also in the New Testament, Jesus and many of the accounts said to be aware like the false prophets.
Yes.
And so I don't know, maybe it's me, but I think, perhaps like, people like, Joe Osteen could be like a false prophet. Perhaps.
It's hard to
Yeah.
say. Like we don't know because it's not like I said.
That's true.
God as after the crucifixion.
Yeah.
God became a lot. He really just stepped away, like really in the intervening sense, I should say, except this one time with Herod, where Herod comes out and gives a speech, and it was they say like, oh, this is not the words of a man but a God, and Herod didn't say like, hey guys, God is responsible. No, he didn't, and then God just goes, okay, death, and Herod is struck down. He's eaten with worms and dies, which sounds terrifying to be honest. But yes, so like after that, he's not really there. He just moves people like Paul. He moves the apostles. That's what he does now, and that's the change that at least I see now. Maybe I'm completely wrong. But that's just my personal individual interpretation.
Right,
Um,
right.
yeah.
Very interesting. So you mentioned earlier that, of course, like with the whole different religions come different concept of God, or like
Mhm.
even outside of religion, like people think God just create the earth and the stars, everything, and didn't do
Yeah.
anything. And so I'm just kind of curious, like how does one even begin to choose like what is the right God or not? If there's so many different concepts, like do they all tend to just cancel out? Or is all of them right? Or like, God just manifests itself in different ways?
It's different for everyone, I think.
Yeah.
Like, and the thing about God, I discovered at least, is you if you try to look for him, you're not going to find him. But if you sit and you wait, and I mean maybe, or I should say, if it comes unexpectedly, even, and that's the way it came onto me. Because trust me, I did not really expect my life going in the direction that like I'm not going to give anyone any too much personal details, of course, but I mean like Tyler, you know what I'm planning on doing pretty soon. So I
Yeah,
mean
I
like
know.
and what like last year I was running for a for like political office.
Right,
So
right.
I spent most of my adult life preparing to be getting into politics. I wanted to do that. And I never fathomed anything else. And then I lost an election, and I sat down and I said, "Oh, okay, third time. Do I really want to do this a fourth?" And something kind of spoke to me, and it was just like, "Nope, you're not going to do this, because if you do it again, you're going to lose again. And you're going to sit in this town, and it's just not going to be a very pleasant
Yeah, when you
experience
lose
for you."
like any sort of election, you lose sort of some of the motivation, so
Well, bit by bit, like I said, like I've run three of these, man. Like, and like you saw the ad, like the thing.
yeah,
I
it's
think I
all
showed you my
the
ads. Like my, I put in a lot of work in this last one. I put like my heart and soul into it, and I came to the realization that this wasn't for me, and that I was meant for something different. And I think God put me into that. Like God said to me, like, listen. You've got these other talents. You've got a good speaking skill. You've got experience in the world. You speak Spanish. You speak well, not as good as you, but I'm trying. But
Mhm.
you have talents and you can use them for other things. And this is this is your opportunity.
Getting back like to the top, like I'm kind of curious, like what was like the reason for you to buy a Latin Bible? Because that's like a whole separate like ancient language.
I just think it's beautiful. I just think it's a beautiful language. Like I
Yeah.
like the way Latin sounds. It's completely useless to me as a liturgical language because I don't need to use Latin in church. But I actually know a Roman Catholic priest here who's within our age range actually, who does Latin mass like in Latin.
Huh.
Um, they kind of sent him out to the boonies afterwards because a lot of the people here didn't really like him using Latin for some reason. But no, he still does it, and he's actually someone I speak to every now and then. But that was really the interest for me of it. And
That
actually,
is interesting because I remember like hearing stories from my grandma about these Latin masses, but I didn't think they still had them.
they had them up until I think it was Vatican II. I think it was not like I said. I'm not a Catholic, but I mean, my grandfather could speak some Latin because he was involved in the church in his village, so he knew he had to be knowledgeable in some of it. So, and even me, like I have some books on Latin. I'm trying to get an idea for it, but I mean
I
Spanish
mean,
first.
from what I can tell so far is kind of like, phonetic, like, Spanish, but I haven't studied it myself, but just looking at, I
The
guess the
Metatron
whole,
will help you.
yeah,
The Metatron is that you've heard of the Metatron, have you?
yes.
Yeah, he does Latin episodes and talks about Latin. He's probably the best person to get the perspective on it from his channels. Um,
Yeah, but
uh,
like
uh,
like you said, like the problem is to, to find people to, I guess have conversation, something geeky in Latin or whatever. Because like again, like there's like no native speakers of Latin, and so you have to find like across the internet you have to sort of, practice conversations in Latin.
yeah, and Fari Farinalda says, Ernest, I'm sorry about my English. I can't follow you. Um, lo siento mucho. Yo quiero hablar en español, pero mis palabras es insuficiente para para el tema. Lo siento, pero gracias por eh, sus, ¿cómo se dice? Attempts. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
kind of getting back to it, like what you're saying, like the thing is about like choosing the right one. It comes to you. It's a calling. It's a feeling, and um, I don't know. Like
I think, maybe it's my personal, theory right here, but I think the main reason why people choose whatever faith is one that they want to is like, largely is dependent on the culture. Like for like American and Canadian and most of Europe, like most people choose Christianity is because, they were brought up with that kind of culture. Because like a lot of the traditions that we, celebrate has a root in Christianity, like, the Christmas and of course Easter and whatever, so on and so forth. And so I guess that's why they choose that. Whereas if somebody was to, being born into like an Asian country, like the most popular religion is like, Buddhism, and they choose to be a Buddhist. And so I guess like, depending on the region where you live, like in the Middle East, you choose Islam. So I think the way in which people choose their religion is largely reflected on the environment that they grew up in.
I think like in those other kind of continents, maybe like my experience will mostly pertain to like North America and South America. And for Rinalda, I speak mostly I use like South American Spanish because that's my area of expertise. Like I spend a lot of time in Peru, or not as much as I want to, but I've spent a bit. But muchas gracias por sus palabras, en serio. The thing here is that I think in the West, where we have kind of, I guess, how do I say it, like a different way of looking at life, and it, like, we don't need God as much, if you really think about it, because you have government. In places like, with a lot of conflict and poverty, South America, Africa, the South Asia, India, and things like that. There is a need for God because the government is not there. You look to God. God, help me today. I want to, I don't know, plow a field better,
Yeah,
or,
there's
or
like a
something like that.
study that has been done, and it mentions that the third world countries tend to be the most religious, while the more Western developed countries, they tend to be less religious, particularly like the European countries and also Canada. United States still is, according to the data, is like one of the most religious countries for the Western Hemisphere. But even then, like the numbers each year for like the religiosity is getting down and down. I
Oh, yes.
believe that it was like, what was it, 60% of people call themselves Christian in the United States versus like, what was it, yeah, 20-30%, something like that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, like, and it really shows because, I mean, if you look at, for example, like the churches, I can speak for mine. Like, I see the numbers go down like every year. Like, I've been involved in my church for about 4 years, really involved. And each year a number, and it's not people leaving. That's the thing. The young people, they go to church to get their kids baptized. They go to church, then you don't see them again until a couple more years later when it's
Yeah,
time
it's
for
like you say,
confirmation.
like they go to for the baptism or
It's
like a
cultural.
wedding, but that's it.
Yeah, they're culturally Christian, but really involved not so much. And that's a weakness of the church itself. The church does not do what's called outreach. We don't try to win people back into the arms of God, into the embrace of the church. And really, there's not. We have to do the outreach. We have to be speaking to people. We have to be on the streets and in the villages and that all over preaching, because nowadays, if you feel kind of like there's a problem in your life, you don't go to a church for help. You go to your local assemblyman, or you go to your member of parliament, and you say, "Oh, dear government, I bring with me this offering, my vote. Please, please save me." And they give you, I don't know, social assistance or something, or Biden bucks. I don't know. The government has replaced God, and it's all a kind of a battle for the hearts and minds, and we live in a world now where God, like I said, God isn't needed in most people's lives. Like, if there's a problem, you go to, like, there's an NGO group, or there's someone in government who can point you in the right direction of some kind of project. Churches, charity is not the church anymore. The church really has lost a lot of that kind of influence over charities. You know what
I
I
think
mean? Like,
also like a lot of the reasons why people are probably leaving too, well, besides questioning the doctrine itself, would be like also because of the various scandals, I mean, associated with like the Catholic Church, not your denomination, but like, in the Catholic Church, where like, there's like a lot of like the child rape which goes unresolved, or
yes,
sometimes they will look like at the mega churches and you see like these sort of people spending money on the airplanes and these sort of expensive items. And so whatever reason it must be, like they must feel some sort of alienation, because that's the main reason people like me and I guess other people now left the church to begin with.
it is the hypocrisy of it.
Yeah.
That is a huge problem. I don't disagree with that. And I've seen it. Like, when I was growing up in the evangelical church, um, the problem I used to see, or one thing I used to see was that was crazy, was people speaking in tongues,
Yeah,
and they'd be
because like
rolling.
there's a passage about, the speaking in tongues, but like the thing is though, like it's not even like a language, like gibberish.
It,
Complete
but
utter
and
gibberish.
This is the funny thing about this, and if you actually look at the passage in the Bible where it talks about speaking in tongues, they're not just rolling around on the ground going, like all this nonsense. They're speaking in Greek, they're speaking in Cretan, they're speaking in Aramaic, they're speaking in Latin. Like the speaking in tongues is supposed to be God, the Holy Spirit, coming into them and being able to preach the word in languages that others can understand. It's not, but for these people, these modern kind of speakers in tongues, it's virtue signaling almost. Like it's the kind of conservative version of going around with a bumper sticker on your car that says triple vaxxed or something like that. I don't know. Like it's a virtue signal, and maybe it's not an intentional one, but it still is. It's someone who gets so worked up, and it's really prominent in the evangelicals. You don't see that with the Catholics. You don't
Oh
see
no, no,
someone
no,
like,
no! Like the Catholics, like when I was growing up, they actually, accepted the sciences. So they don't deny like the evolution. They don't deny the Big Bang or the other scientific theories. But it's like you were saying, like the extreme evangelical sects that focus more on like the creationism stuff. It's crazy.
it's zealousness. It's zealotry. Like I really, like,
Yes.
that's why I'm not an evangelical, because I don't feel it's it's not a deep understanding. Like the Catholics, the Episcopalians, they have theology, but you hear like Joel Osteen come out, God loves you, if you give more to God you're going to get a brand new Cadillac, and this and that. Like they treat God as like like a 401k, like an
On the
investment.
like on the sign up for like Joel Osteen, like I really hate when there was like a humongous, what was it, flood, whatever, I can't remember, rainstorm, and then he did not open the doors for like his followers at all. I remember that was happening in Texas.
It was. The funny thing is
Yeah.
about Joel Osteen, though, he pays his property tax in full. That's actually a true thing. They looked into it. Joel Osteen pays his taxes. I don't know about that. There's another one, John Hagee. I don't know if he does it, but I mean, there's some of these mega church guys, they don't. But I don't like prosperity gospel. I think it's just another kind of hollowing out of Christian faith. Like um like if you really want to read some good books, anything by Thomas Aquinas is good. Saint Augustine, of Hippo, is fantastic as well. And even like I'm not a communist by any stretch of the means, but Gustavo Gutierrez is Theology of Liberation. That's it's confusing, and it kind of makes it sound like Jesus wants your money and your land, but it's still an interesting kind of read, I should say.
Yeah, I
What
was gonna say, like, because in the Gospels it said, like, Jesus did not really like the rich that much, so would
he
that make it?
he
Yeah,
he didn't, but he also didn't. He
yeah,
wasn't like the Bernie Sanders, like I'm not. I'm asking you for your support. Now give it here. Like that meme.
yeah.
It's not like that. Like Jesus wants you to give up these things willingly. He doesn't. He never says like I am taking your stuff. Here, this is mine. Um, there's some talk about the disciples doing this and that later on. I have to look into that a bit more.
Yeah.
Like I know like there's a few people here who are quite the skeptics and probably are reading through their Bibles trying to find a thing or two, but like there are not everything in the Bible is perfect. I mean, and some of it I can't explain, and I won't pretend that I can. Not right
Yeah,
now.
like, I
Maybe.
noticed, like, not I'm not referring to you specifically, but, like, there's, like, a lot of these, like, Christian figures, that I've seen who do, like, the apologetics and say that there's, like, nothing that's, like, wrong in the Bible that's 100% perfect. I'm like, "No, you cannot do that."
No, no,
If
no,
you
no,
wanna
no,
be
no,
as
no.
honest as possible, you have to admit that maybe it might be some flaws here and there.
Well, like the Bible, like ourselves,
Yeah.
is not perfect. If the Bible was perfect, everyone would be running to Christianity. Everyone would flock to it. It'd be the best book ever. It would be the New York Times bestseller nonstop. but I mean, it's not
I
like
think, if you look at the data, it's like still is the number one book that's been
well,
being so,
oh
yeah.
yes, yes, yes,
Yeah.
but you know what I'm trying to say,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, like it's not flying off the shelves as per se. Um, but I mean, faith is an interesting thing. I mean, it can be beautiful, it can be scary. Um, it can do lots of things, and I mean, like I look at it very favorably because it's helped me figure out what I want to do in life. So I mean, I have a lot to thank them for it, because if it wasn't for this, I'd still probably be trying to run for some kind of political office and losing over and over and over. But no, like working like in a blue collar kind of job that I wasn't just happy at, you know. So like it's really I, I want to encourage people to get in touch with their faith, but I can't. Like it's something they have to find
I
themselves.
think we can all encourage, like, no matter, like, your background, to at least before accept a faith or not accept a faith, to actually, of course, read your Bibles.
Yeah, read your Bibles or
Yeah,
do your research. You know, like I said, I've been around the
yeah.
world looking at these things. And by the way, if anyone wants to just chat about it to me, I'm sure Tyler can put my Twitter
Yeah, like, all
handle
the details,
into.
like, all my citations and your Twitter page is underneath my, video.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so people can so you know, if you want to have a chat sometime, guys, you know, I'm more than happy to chat through the DMs. You know, I'm pretty easy to get along with. Mike says, you know, I'm a skeptic that wants to believe but can't. Um, you know, I can understand that, and I can see um why you would kind of be like that. It is difficult sometimes. Um, the best thing I can say is that once you stop looking, you might find it. That sounds kind of cheesy, but you know that's just the way for me. I just kind of walked my way into it without even realizing that this is what I was going to be doing, or going to be involved with. You know, I just figured, you know what the heck? I got some free time on a Sunday morning. I'll go to an 8:30 service at church. Next thing you know, I'm volunteering. Next thing you know, I'm on the board of a church. You know, and it just kind of snowballs from there, I should say.
I guess
So
this is the final thing I wanna comment on, and then we can
sure,
probably
sure.
stop the conversation, but,
Yeah.
I'm just kinda curious because, like, we were talking earlier, like, I guess the state replaced, God, but, I'm just kinda curious, like, how do people in the future might find community? Because, I mean, that's, like, I guess, like, one of the positive things about the churches is, the community, and so
Yes.
when people, leave the church, it's, like, kinda hard for us to, find, like, a group of people to hang out or do something unless, you try to, do a date or go to the movies or whatever. It's, like, it's kind of hard to have that sort of community aspect.
It is, and that is really honestly one of the most valuable things the church provides us. Because I mean,
Yeah.
like a church alone
Mhm. Yeah.
does not make you like faith. It's not. It is the community, because you have people around you buttressing that up and supporting you. And I mean, and not just in faith, but in other things too. Because like I said earlier, you know, the church used to be the place where you'd go for help, you know, for the charity, and things like that. It's
My idea of the church would probably be like something like the Universalists, where more or less the Universalists invite not just, the Christians, but literally like any person and people who don't have any faith. And so when my first, idea of a church, to welcome anybody and, of the community, it would probably be like the Universalists, maybe.
sounds like the United Church of Canada, because they actually have an
Yeah.
atheist as a minister. I'm not even joking. It's a Christian denomination. They have an atheist as a priest.
Wow.
And there was another one. Um, I think it's in Manitoba, Canada, where
Universalists.
somebody said he's a priest. He's a literal ordained priest. He says Jesus is my chief druid, which is like he's a pagan Anglican priest, which is really
What the
strange.
hell?
I'm going to show you a link to that later on. You're going to laugh at that one, but it's really strange. But I think we've had a good conversation. It's like 2 hours
One
long.
just one more thing, and like just one more thing, and then of course, like we could turn it off. But there's something that just popped in my head just right now. Like, what do
hmm
you think about like the social justice in the churches? I'm good.
I it's really, that's a complicated thing, to be honest.
Yeah,
I think that the church tries too hard sometimes to appease the secular world. We all want to be inclusive and loving and tolerant. I mean, inclusive is a very subjective term.
yeah,
As you've been involved in the anti-SJW fight for years, or discussion, I should say. So I mean,
yeah, that's
like
good.
the
Yeah.
thing that, yeah, it's more of a discussion than a fight, I should say. I'm not Sargon. I'm not going to say it's like the culture war, but no, I think that there is, in some places, a need for social justice, but not the kind of social justice that we see in the United States, for example, the mainstream quote unquote social justice. But I mean, like, you look at Latin America. I mean, you look at the discrimination that like indigenous groups sometimes face. You look at the way that corporations exploit the resources of the country and poison the well, I guess is the word, poison, water and other resources, and just run rampant. And you have oppressive governments and things like that. Like, that is where the church needs to be. The church needs to be there to give strength to these people, to give, if necessary, give a voice. And I mean, that's very, very important, if that makes any
Yeah, and
sense.
also the most famous example, I guess you could say, of like positive, social justice within the church was like, Martin Luther King, because he was
Yep.
inspired by, of course, like not just the Bible, but also inspired by people like Gandhi to, fight against the racial injustice in the United States.
Yes, and that's the kind of thing where you need to be, like the church needs to be, because for me, for example, like in terms of justice, I believe personally that you cannot have you cannot have a healthy church just spiritual. You need to have like a happy material life as well, or at least I should say a secular life. And the church needs to help support that. It needs to be at least on a moral support level. Like, I can go into a long rambly detail about that, but we can do that another time, because that is a topic in and of itself.
Right, because like I said, it's like again, like it's like it serves like the community, and so obviously it's gonna help out other people. But I don't like the idea of like the politicians using the church, to promote their political ideas, because honestly, because at least yeah, for the United States, it's like the separation of church and state, and so the
Yes,
state
yes.
cannot be involved if religious matter, vice versa. So I'm not sure like how it's okay for politicians to promote their ideas in the church.
Church and politics are involved. Trust me. There's always a place for it, especially when it comes down to certain kind of moral kind of questions sometimes. Because we I don't know if we can really let the government be the arbiter of what's good and evil. I mean, we've seen that lately, where the government sometimes they make things evil when they probably aren't, without getting anything specific, of
And
course.
definitely not, what happened with the truckers. Hinch, hinch, nudge,
I Well,
nudge.
I'm not saying that. I mean, like, I'm not taking a side on any of these kind of things. I try to stay out of a lot of the Canadian politics now, because I I, I like having a bank account, and car insurance. But no, I'm just saying, just in general, because I mean, I've seen in some places where people stand up and protest, not saying Canada, but I'm saying, like, in South America, where that's my bailiwick, that's my place of experience. And the government has said, what you're fighting for, what you want to see done, is wrong. You want clean drinking water in this community. We need a mine. You guys are doing the wrong thing. Shut it down. That's what I mean to say. So I mean, there is a place for the church and politics to get involved in politics, but not in the thing that the traditional conservative kind of evangelical conservatives want. Like honestly, like the gay marriage thing, I legitimately don't care. I really don't care about that. That's not a big issue for me
Yeah,
within
the thing about
Christianity.
the gay marriage stuff, I voted in favor of it when it was like on the ballot for my state.
Mhm.
But I don't think, of course, just because I agree with gay marriage doesn't mean I should force like my personal belief onto the church to do whatever they want. And so he left. He just, I think his computer kind of froze right now. So sorry, guys. Abortion. I mean, personally, like it's kind of like a hard topic to pick a side. I guess there's like good answers on both sides because obviously like the pro-life people have a point about, of course, terminating a life, but at the same time, I don't think it should be completely illegal. Oh, there you
Yeah,
are.
yeah. I accidentally I was checking the chat and I hit the leave button by accident. This time it was my fault. But no, like there's certain things the church should fight for, certain things it shouldn't. I'm not going to talk about the abortion issue. I mean, for me, that's an individual choice. Um, Personally, I I can't say that I agree with it, but I never would impede anyone's right to get one. You know,
Yeah, it's like
it's
the same thing for me because like it's like one of those kind of topics where like I cannot pick one side or the other. It's like, I think there's like, truth in both.
well, I I can't say that, but like it this that my response to it is more of the libertarian kind of thing. I guess it's kind of a
Yeah.
throwback to my politics. While I don't agree with it, I can't necessarily impede your ability to do that because that's not right. Um,
Right. I think we're
yeah,
pretty much done for like, the 2 hours that we've been talking, but it's been a great conversation as always, Ernest. And by the way,
definitely.
guys, after this live stream turns off, there's a link to the original chat that was on Twitter if you guys want to see like the first part of this. And so thanks again, Ernest, for coming on.
Anytime, my pleasure, man.
And take care, everybody. Good night. Have a good
Good
one.
night.